Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to ask question 169, standing to my name. Question is directed to the Acting Prime Minister, Attorney General and Minister for Economy, Public Enterprises, Civil Service and Communications. The World Bank opened its South Pacific office in Fiji last year for 5 countries, Kiribati, Tuvalu, Samoa, Tonga and Fiji. Last week was the opening of the United States Agency for International Development Ready Project office in Suva that serves 12 Pacific countries. Can the Minister explain to this House what it means for Fiji having these offices based here in Fiji?
Thank you. Honourable Acting Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for this question. Madam Speaker, the USAID Climate Ready Office actually opened its office last week, as the Honourable Member highlighted. It serves 12 countries, include of course Fiji, FSM, Kiribati, Nauru, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Republic of Marshall Islands, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu and Vanuatu. USAID has actually allocated US $24 million to support the Climate Ready Office, and this money will be applied across these 12 countries. Madam Speaker, the US Ready Office the Climate Ready Office, funded by the US, will actually help regional stakeholders to draft, implement policies to achieve national adaptation goals, access and utilize international sources of climate financing and improve systems and expertise to better manage and monitor adaptation projects, which we've talked about in the past couple of days. The objective, of course, for them is to help the Pacific Island countries become more climate resilient and safeguard the lives and livelihoods of their citizens. It also helped develop local partnerships and tap into international experiences. Madam Speaker, as we highlighted and also at the opening, that we need these offices also to help us to tap into the private sector. A lot of private companies from larger countries do not necessarily see the Pacific as having as enough economies of scale, or large enough economies of scale to come and invest here. We believe that should also be a focus too. World Bank, as highlighted also, has opened its office. They've moved into newer premises. They'll have about 25 staff. World Bank currently, of course, in Fiji specifically, we've got a loan with them of $5.9 million to connect Vanuatu. We're building a spur out of a cable that's currently being laid between Samoa and Watuanga. We are very lucky that the Southern Cross cable lands in Watuanga. So a lot of the Pacific Island countries want to connect to the Southern Cross cable and use that. So we've decided to build a spur to get people in Vanuatu and of course other outer islands in that part to be better connected. We have infrastructure loans with them and also the post-cyclone Winston rebuild. Madam Speaker, all of this, including all the other agencies that are here, the ADB, the United Nations, UNDP, UN officers, UNESCO, UNICEF, UNFPA, WHO, FAO, PIFTEC, ILO, PIFS, SPC, SPTO, many other organizations, Madam Speaker, are actually positioning themselves or have positioned themselves in Fiji because of the fact that Fiji actually offers very good connectivity. It was very interesting just even listening to one of the owners of the Crusaders at the last week at the Games. And he was saying that if you compare Fiji to many of the other Pacific Island countries, we are streaks ahead in respect of the maturity of our infrastructure, the connectivity, our ability to cater for overseas visitors. So it also helps us position well. We also, as ministers, all the different ministers, when they go offshore, we also market Fiji too, to say, look, with international organizations, if you are based in Fiji, you get better connectivity with the rest of the Pacific Island countries, plus you can actually cooperate with the other international and multilateral organizations. So it means quite a significant boost for us, of course. It lifts up our profile. When these companies come in, or these organizations come in, they of course hire officers, as in physical office space. They also recruit officers, local Fijians. They also, of course, go and buy properties, rent properties, and they hire personnel for their homes. So it increases a lot of economic footprint for us. And a lot of them also now are hosting regional meetings too, as a result of them being based in Fiji. So one of the reasons we're not simply doing a lot of the infrastructure spend just for the sake of it, but of course there's a rationale behind it. As we speak today, the Indian government is hosting a regional meeting on sustainable development. So we have various, the President of Nauru and various other people are here to have this two-day workshop and conference on sustainable development. So again, this sort of builds a footprint, and by having those organizations based here, we're able to better market our country and be able to position ourselves for the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Asir Randranu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a question to the Honorable Minister. Can you inform the House what is government's obligation to now the office being set up here?
Thank you, Honorable Acting Prime Minister.
We are not funding them in any way. We're going to have an agreement with them in respect of their status as an international organization, and that's done under the Diplomatic Immunities Act, relevant law. But apart from that, they obviously will carry out their own work. Sometimes these organizations, of course, apply for things such as that when they bring in equipment, if it's, for example, for renewable energy purposes, they may want duty-free. And of course, a lot of them apply for VAT. We don't give VAT exemptions, but we get the relevant agency to pay for it. So, for example, we have the Minister for Women. She talked about a particular bus being donated. So if the Japanese or JICA donates the bus, we get the ministry to pay for the VAT, but we allow that vehicle to come in duty-free. I mean, those are the kind of things that we do on an ad hoc basis.
Honorable Samuel Awuyibalu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Supplementary question. After all these years, Madam Speaker, we never dreamt that all these international organizations, such as the World Bank and the Project Office, to be in Fiji, and all that. And only during this Fiji First government, we have seen this. My question is that why they choose Fiji? Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Honorable Acting Prime Minister.
Question. I think for a number of reasons. There's no doubt some of these international agencies were in Fiji prior to 2007. There's no doubt. I mean, the agreement between the UN was signed between the Ratimara government and then the UN agency. There were various obligations. In fact, in that agreement, if you look at it, Fiji had even agreed to pay for the office setup, etc. And some of those obligations signed in those agreements till to date have not been fulfilled on our part. But of course those agencies did exist in Fiji. But of course we've seen an escalation of an interest and indeed new offices being formed in Fiji. Like you rightly pointed out, the World Bank. Their regional office was always based in Sydney to service the rest of the Pacific. But I think a lot of other, because of, I suppose, the Fijian government's desire, as the Honourable Minister for Defence highlighted even when he was Minister for Foreign Affairs, the desire to broaden Fiji's footprint internationally. That of course has resulted in some interest in Fiji. Also the fact that Fiji is very well connected. The slogan that we do use unofficially is that Fiji Airways now flies to every single continent that rims the Pacific Ocean except South America. So we fly now to San Francisco, LA, Hong Kong, Singapore, and of course Australia, New Zealand, the cities. Next month, Madam Speaker, we're having direct flights to Adelaide. These things all actually play a very pivotal role. It was very interesting when Fiji was suspended from the Commonwealth a few years ago. The Commonwealth had decided to set up a regional youth office for the Commonwealth Secretariat, and they had set it up in Solomon Islands as a result of our suspension. The office no longer is operational, from what we understand, but there is a consultant that had done an analysis for them, and they found that the best country to have regional meetings was Fiji, for a number of reasons. One of them being that the infrastructure was very good, and of course the rebuild, the revamping of the infrastructure. Secondly, in terms of connectivity, it was the most inexpensive place to actually fly to and get other Pacific Island countries to come to Fiji. That was number two. The other thing is we had a mature tourism industry, and therefore the quality of accommodation, the quality of conferences, etc. Number four was that there was security, law and order situation, the environment was good. All of this combined, they said Fiji was the best place. The next best place, they said, if you want to have a regional meeting, was Brisbane. So you can imagine how far down the other Pacific Island countries rank. So it's for these reasons, because a lot of these regional organizations, of course, also look at the costs involved to set up regional office. The minister has also just reminded me that COICA, which is the regional, which is an aid agency for Korea, is going to set up its regional office in Suva. So that's another agency that's going to do that. So all of them are going to feed in. One of the countries, without naming it, a Pacific Island country, one of the ministers has recently mentioned to me, he said that he wants to have his country open up their High Commission in Fiji. And one of the reasons why they want to do that, so they can very easily access all these multilateral agencies. So we should be able to take advantage of that. I mean, similarly, we have now, for example, a lot of the investors who are saying to us, look, the fact that we can land in Fiji, you have 4-lane roads, you can come down to Suva very quickly, go down to, seeing my manufacturers. We have now call centers set up. And one of them said to me, he's from Australia, he said, look, I like the fact that I can fly into Fiji, I can go see my business, see the people who are dealing with my call centers, and fly back out the next day. So these are the kind of advantages that we are pulling upon. And of course, infrastructure development, connection to utilities, all of these things do matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable William Albert.
Madam Speaker, I thank the Minister for his replies and the question from my colleague, Honourable Bonivalu. And it's good to know that this is a process that started during the days of the Alliance Party, continued by SVT, Labour Coalition, and SDL. And we appreciate that, and we continue with that. But hopefully, Madam Speaker, can we ask the Minister that now, with organizations such as this setting up in Fiji, people who come in from a free society and all that, will this help motivate the government to remove those draconian laws that are now part of our life in this country? Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Acting Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, like I said, I think a couple of days ago, that I'm going to lend some form of credibility to the question by actually answering it. Madam Speaker, I do not know which draconian laws the Honourable Member is talking about. There are no draconian laws. They talk about the media industry decree. Tell me one person who's been charged under it. Which person has been charged under the Media Industry Development Decree Act? Which person? Nobody. She's superfluous. It's been superfluous. There's only been one company because of the ownership issues, and they admitted to it. Only one company. Nothing to do with expression of the freedom or freedom to express themselves. Nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing draconian. They need to go and read the laws in some of the other Pacific Island countries. You see, the fact of the matter is, if you look at the caliber and the quality and the direction of the questions coming from the other side, they are very desperate. They are very desperate. They're trying to clutch at straws. They want to tell the public of Fiji there's something wrong in Fiji. Oh, draconian laws. Oh, civil service not getting treated well. Oh, this wrong is happening there. They're clutching at straws. Unfortunately for them, they're just geared towards the elections now. And they want to find something to clutch onto. It's absolutely incorrect to say they're draconian laws. Madam Speaker, the reality is this. The reality is this. The reality is this, Madam Speaker. If these international organizations thought that Fiji was such an oppressive country, oppressive society, oppressive laws, oppressive government, they would have never come here. In fact, many of them would have withdrawn from Fiji. Those ones that he's attributing to the past governments would have withdrawn. None of them have withdrawn. In fact, they have enhanced. They've built the capacity. They're moving some of the other regional offices that they had in other countries and actually beefing up their positions here. You see, Madam Speaker, this is unfortunately the quality of questions coming out from them. They're extremely desperate, and the fact of the matter is that the Fijian society today has been never more freer than before. The level of of discussion, the level of philosophical debate we are having now, the supposed taboo areas that nobody could ever talk about is now being freely spoken about. Now freely spoken about. Our youth, our women, they are talking freely about these subjects. That used to be the purview of only the elite, which is what they are concerned about. That's why they talk about all these draconian laws, because they actually are frightened of this laissez-faire atmosphere we've created regarding ideas. They don't like new ideas. They don't like people thinking outside the box. They're just contained in the containerized way of thinking. Anything outside that is somehow the other recalcitrant. Anything outside of that is somehow the other going renegade. They don't like that. This is why they're trying to flip it around and say, oh, this draconian society. There's nothing draconian about that. They can go now and speak to anybody they like outside. They can speak and make any comment they like within the bounds of the law, which is defamatory provisions. They can say whatever they like. No member of parliament in this parliament can say that they are somehow or the other being suppressed. How are you being suppressed? Ridiculous. What a ridiculous proposition. What a ridiculous proposition, Madam Speaker. And this is the kind of obfuscation, the misrepresentation, the lack of intellectual power being applied to the ground realities in Fiji. They are, Madam Speaker, I actually sympathize with them at times because I know they don't have much to go on about. They are just simply faltering along the way and looking for some desperate measures. Thank you, Madam Speaker.